And thanks for staying with Morning Live. Now, there appears to be a growing power struggle within the African National Congress following the party Secretary General I Mavuso's refusal to comply with his suspension after being charged with corruption. Magashule has denied the charges and calls the move unconstitutional. He has instead written his own letter in which he says that as Secretary General of the party, he is now suspending ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa. Magashule's corruption, fraud and money laundering charges are linked to a failed multi-million rand asbestos project when he was Premier of the Free State. Party veteran Mavuso Msimang joins us now to weigh in on these and some of the other developments within the party. Mr. Msimang, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thanks for the invitation and good morning to your viewers.
Well, what a day it's been, just looking at the past 24 hours and all the developments within the African National Congress around the step-aside rule. As a veteran, watching all of this unfold, what are your immediate observations?
It's a very sad, it's a very sad day for the African National Congress that at that level of management, you should have these kinds of squabbles. It's tragic. I think as far as Ace Magashule is concerned, he has signed his own death warrant. If the ANC is what I know it to be, he has been suspended, and he doesn't accept that. Where to from there? I just think that the ANC must regard this thing, treat it with the contempt, absolute contempt that it deserves, and move on and do things that need to be done. It took too long, in my opinion, for the Secretary General to be removed in his position. He's been behaving in this manner for a very long time. Now it's convenient for him to talk about being guided about this by the South African Constitution. At another time is the resolutions of the ANC which are being applied selectively. This is so childish, and really it doesn't become an ANC leadership to engage in this kind of debates.
So childish, and you talk about the ANC that you know. Is this the ANC that you know? Looking at how this is playing out at the moment, it was said that there was a deadline for last Friday, the 30th of April, for those members who fall foul of the ANC's constitution and the resolution taken at the Nasrec conference to step aside. They didn't do that. The ANC didn't do anything. Instead, we heard, okay, now there's going to be an NWC meeting. So it seems as though the party is indecisive with regard to how it deals with its own resolutions.
I have to admit that this matter was handled very sloppily. Once a decision had been taken that people who were facing corruption charges and other serious ones must step aside, failing which they would be suspended. The process should have been put in motion to make sure that at the end of that period of grace, the 30 days, if they hadn't taken any action to either step aside or appeal, if they wanted to appeal this thing, that automatically we've got a public that is listening to these announcement by the ANC. So the gap between the 30th of September, was it the 29th, and yesterday was just too big and so unnecessary. This action of yesterday should have been taken at the end of the suspension period. So do we still have the ANC leadership? I think there are serious problems that have beset the organization. Some people despair, but I really have belief, that I have faith that we will still be able to restore the ANC to what it used to be. It all happens because there is so much corruption that's taking place in the country, but particularly also within the ranks of the leadership. So you've got questions of whether can people who are involved in corruption and have not been unearthed, would they have the courage to tell others to resign? And all of these things do need to be sorted out. Thabo Mbeki once said, better fewer, but better fewer than but better. You know, you have to have serious people, quality in the leadership. There's no point in rushing to get over 1 million members. There have always been 12, 11 million people voting for the ANC at its peak. You need to come up with a program that serves the interests of the public, but have a quality group of people that leads the organization.
Mr. Msimang, if we look at the allegations, and it's just a slew of allegations against members of the ANC from the top to the bottom around questions of corruption, fraud, malfeasance, you name it. And a lot of this has also now been ventilated once again, and I say once again before the Zondo Commission, because all of these things have been ventilated in other avenues, be it during the Portfolio Committee sittings in Parliament or elsewhere. We've heard all of this before. So looking at the African National Congress right now, who in the party actually has the moral authority to stand up and say, I will lead the charge to clean this house and reclaim the ANC?
Well, naturally, the president, as the leader of the organization, should step forward and take leadership. I think he has done so. Some people believe it's been done tentatively. But you have something called the National Executive Committee, which we are always told that they are the highest decision-making body of the organization between the 5-yearly conferences. That's the group of people who should stand behind the president in difficult times like this and step forward. We always look to what's the president going to do? What is the collective doing when people among them do these funny things? I remember in the Zuma era, you had people standing up, Derek Hanekom, Pravin Gordon, a few others, saying this cannot be. The corruption should be denounced by the leadership of the ANC. But that's reactive already. What needs to be done really is to bring us back to what took us into government, because we were going to deliver on the promises that were given on election. We are talking about poverty increasing in South Africa. We're talking about housing being in a sorry state. This is a consequence of bad policies. These are the things that ought to occupy people. The ANC is in government. It should decide how much budget goes towards alleviating the problems of the poor, who are increasing on our watch. It should ensure that when that allocation is made, unlike what you see in education, a lot of money goes to education, but there is so much mismanagement of those funds, that properly qualified people implement the programs that have been budgeted for, that have been funded. We're busy now with these issues of corruption and so on, which have to be attended to. But really, back to basics is how much money that is collected from taxpayers goes towards dealing with issues of poverty. Why is inequality increasing in South Africa? That's besides the corruption thing, although it contributes quite a bit to that. But really, that's the problem of the ANC, to deliver a service to government. Otherwise, what's the point of being in government?
So, speaking to that point in particular, many South African would say the country is on autopilot because the ANC leadership is busy with their factional squabbles within the party. And you look at what's happening around us. There's rampant corruption wherever you look. You have a runaway crime situation in the country, the poverty, the inequality, the unemployment question. And now we're dealing with a pandemic that has also now become mired in controversy in terms of how we are dealing with it because of corruption. And all of this speaks to the governing party. So why should South Africans even have faith going to the polls in October in this ANC that cannot even get its own house in order, Mr. Msimang?
I would forgive them if they didn't trust us anymore, the people. I would. But I think there is an opportunity. There really still exists an opportunity to correct these things. I think the mini crisis that is happening now, and it is a mini crisis, people really of no consequence making noise when the organization takes corrective measures. There must be a firmness in dealing with corruption. There is absolutely no doubt about the fact that it has contributed so much to the malaise that is being experienced by the nation. Countries, developing countries at our stage of development are doing much better than us. So it's not the global situation that is causing the crisis of the growth in the country. It is really poor management. Autopilot, I've heard people say that. I get very upset, but you look at what's going on and say, you can't have municipalities that have got nasty things floating around. You can't have people, all the things that are happening, just too many. What do I say? I really think that the leadership perhaps has a last chance to fix things. I do not think that the people are going to tolerate this for much longer. You have a group of people, and I am among them, who said, if government fails, let's also appeal to the people and say they are the last bastions of democracy. They can stay in their parties, but they must take issues up like sewage that's not working, like the very many things that you can cite, and demand that the government performs or take action. I've seen courts passing judgments. They say, let's say, people must fix things themselves and use the budget of municipalities. This is wonderful, but it's a crisis kind of reaction. This should not happen. But people must really stop now relying on something that does not work. It's not to interfere with their political interests and so on, but if the government doesn't deliver, as it hasn't been, to a very large extent, people must really look at how they can uphold democracy themselves.
We are unfortunately out of time. We'll have to leave it there. But thanks so much for your time, Mr. Mavuso Msimang, ANC veteran, who was speaking to us, weighing in on these latest developments around the African National Congress. All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll bring you 7:30 News headlines.